Hello and welcome, Toolkit Masters, to Q&A Thursday. Once again, it's come around really quickly, I know, but we have got a great webinar on today. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how you react to this one. So this is the 5 worst qualities of a leader. So the ones that I want you to avoid. So we're going to go through each one of those, and you may have had a boss in the past or maybe in the present, which I'm really sorry if you do, that has got these traits, or some or all or one of these traits, and they're really, really, really difficult to live with on a daily basis. So we're going to go through those 5 worst qualities of leadership, and you can tell me your thoughts and insights as we go. So for those that are on live today, I just want you to put in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a comments bar there. Just tell me that you can see and hear me, and we are good to go. So just making sure I'm on here, and then we can make a move. All right. So in the bottom right-hand corner, just let me know you can see and hear me, and we're all ready to go. Okay. I think I'm getting connection problems with a couple. Ready to go. Oops. Hang on. Let's have a look. Okay. Right. I could hear myself then. All right. Hello, Tony. Great to see and hear you. Fantastic that you are here. If we got anyone else out there. All right. Yes, we have got some lurkers out there. I can see on the line. All right. That's okay. Okay. All right. Let's start. So the 5 worst qualities of leadership. And you may have come across these, as I've said before, and you will know the impact that it has on the team. So what I want you to do is have a think about those things and the impact that it had on you and your fellow team members while you were going through that. We'll have a talk about each one of them, and then we'll talk about the impact that it has and why we need to avoid them. So don't go away. Stay with me. I'm going to share my screen with you, so bear with me for 2 secs, and we will start. So it's going to be a good one today, and hopefully you can relate to a lot of these things that that we're going to speak about today. So the 5 worst leadership qualities. So let's kick it off. Absenteeism. So, you know, you've got smart leaders that know how to delegate. So they delegate tasks to people. They delegate public appearances, perhaps. Perhaps they delegate presentations and things to help build the capability of their team. But this is totally different to a boss that is never around. Okay, a boss that simply doesn't manage. And that is totally different to a smart boss that is actually delegating to get to an end result, and that is building the capability and challenging their people, versus a boss that just really doesn't want to be there. And you know what? This is actually really, really common to have a boss that, and they call it laissez-faire, which means they don't seem to care about what work's getting done and why it's getting done. They don't seem to worry about, you know, anything that might go wrong. They sort of shrug their shoulders. They don't take any in charge of anything. And this is a person that reaps all the rewards of being, you know, in that position or in that role, but then don't do anything about it. They don't take any of the responsibility. They don't take anything of the workload on, and it's all left up to the team to do everything. And you might have come across this in the past. So this is what happens to the team members, right? They're not getting any sort of direction. They're not getting feedback from their boss. There might be some, you know, quite stressful big decisions to make on a day-to-day basis, but the boss is not around, so they have to make them. You might not know how to get onto another role or build your capability towards your career stream that you want to go, because your boss is never around to support that. There might be some conflicts going on in the team, but there's nobody there to mediate what was going on. You might have some people slacking off and some high performance doing all the work and getting really resentful. But again, the boss is not there to sort of counter that and have those courageous conversations. So, you know, it makes it really, really difficult, though, because these leaders don't actively make trouble. their negative impact on the workplace can be really, really difficult to measure. And sometimes they become a low priority. Oh, we won't worry about Stan, the laissez-faire leader. You know, his team seem to be muddling through. We know we've got to deal with him, but we've got these bigger fish to fry over here. And all of a sudden a year or two goes by and that person's still doing exactly the same as they were before. So sometimes it's really, really difficult to pinpoint these people and get something done about it. But it's really, really important that we do, because absenteeism bosses really have a detrimental effect on their team by huge amounts, and it's quite common. So whatever you do, don't become an absentee boss in your team, okay? You are needed. You are there for a reason. People need your support, your guidance, your resources that you can offer. They need you to be able to take the reins on some occasions and delegate on others. So, you know, there's lots of reasons why you've been put in that role. So don't be one of those people that sort of grabs the role, says, woohoo, I've got lots and lots of perks now, my own car park, a pay rise, you know, I'm at my own sort of lunchtime, whatever, and then disappear. You don't need that. All right. So what's the next one? And these are all quite common. So you may have found yourself in this position. The next one's optimism. And you might be saying to yourself, Tina, what is wrong with optimism? Optimism is a good thing. And I would agree with you. And I would say, yes, absolutely. Of course it is. You want to have a boss. You don't want a negative ninny all the time, somebody who's gloom and doom and, you know, doomsday is just around the corner. You want someone with optimism and positivity and all this sort of stuff. What I'm talking about here, though, is that optimism that borders on Pollyanna. And Pollyanna means they can do everything and everything's fine. You know, the big bosses come down. Is everything okay? Yeah, everything's brilliant. No, it's not brilliant. No, it's not brilliant. We need a new piece of kit. We need some resources. We're understaffed. You know, there's lots of stuff that we need to have that courageous conversation about. But they're all, oh, yeah, couldn't be better. Everything's marvelous, fabulous. And then the boss says, oh, could you do this really, really complex and high valued task? Yeah, we can do that. No worries. They don't even think about they haven't got the resources. They haven't got the people. They haven't got the time. They haven't got the money. They haven't got the budget. All those sorts of things that you need to take into account when you're a leader, and you need to have the ability to be able to push back and go, do you know what? We can't do that in our current state. However, if you give me 2 more people, if you extend the timeline by 3 months, and if you give me a budget of 10 grand, we'll have a crack. You know, so we need to have those sorts of leaders, not the Pollyannas that everything is marvelous, everything's fantastic, nothing's going wrong. We can just do everything. Because what all that does is nothing changes, nothing gets done right. And there's a lot of stress put on the team to get all these things that they've promised and, you know, said that they could deliver, when in fact we're going to struggle to do any of that. So this is what happens to your team members if you're a Pollyanna leader and over optimistic and saying yes to everything and telling everybody that everything is brilliant. You're going to paralyze your team because you've got so much unrealistic expectations. Okay, so they're going to be so paralyzed and not be able to move. They don't have the resources, they don't have the support, they don't have the time, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the capability to be able to get everything done that you've promised. So we don't want that. We want you to take a step back, and if things come down the line, you are not a funnel, you are actually a filter. So you can filter it and go, do you know what? We can do that part, but we can't do that part in our current state. However, if you changed A, B, and C, we could have a crack at that part, you know, so that's what your job is. So those Pollyanna bosses, they do lots of damage whilst trying to keep in the good books with everybody, and it just doesn't work. All right, some of you might have seen or heard of those bosses. What's another one? Micromanagement. And this is a beauty. This is one that we have talked about on a number of occasions, but believe you me, it is out there in abundance. And let me tell you, there was a survey conducted of more than 2,000 employees really recently, and the number one primary reason why people do not like their bosses is because they micromanage. That was above everything. The second one is because they're overcritical, which is a part of this as well, and we'll talk about that a bit later. And then third one was disorganized bosses. So this micromanagement is still happening today. Even after all the things that we know and the damage that it causes, it's still happening today. So this is a controlling boss. They always have to be involved. They don't delegate enough. And when they do, they check in incessantly and ruin anybody's chances to be creative or to value add in their own way. And there's only one way, and the one way is the way that they do it. And if you don't do it that exact way, then, you know, they rip it back off you and redo it. If you're doing a task and something happens, instead of you being able to problem solve and come up with some sort of creative solution, they'll jump in and rip it off you and take it away and go, oh, no, you can't do that. I'll finish it off, because obviously you're not good enough to do it. And what this does, it diminishes the confidence of the team members. So they don't have any self-esteem or confidence that they can get stuff done. They don't build their capability. They don't learn new skills or knowledge, all those sorts of things. And they become really dependent on that boss. So they won't do anything now without asking the boss. They might write a paper and say, oh, can you check this, boss, and check that it's all right? When in fact it should be just sent through. They won't be able to do anything, and they become very, very dependent on that boss, which is really, really sad, because it puts people in a really bad place. So please, 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 if you've got perfectionistic tendencies, just make sure, because they're exhausting to say the least, but just make sure it is not bordering on micromanagement. And if you think you are, get some real feedback from your team members and say, hey guys, do you think I'm prone to micromanaging, because I don't really want to be that boss? And if I am, I need to change my behaviours. All right. You know, I've even seen extreme micromanagers that start to monitor employees' breaks, whether that's, you know, tea breaks or lunch breaks or bathroom breaks. And then they reward co-workers for dobbing in somebody that's not working right or being a bit idle or lazy or whatever. And this behaviour is really, really, it breaks all motivation. It makes you less creative. It makes people resentful. It's destructive on the teamwork environment, and people are more likely to quit and walk out the door. And when you think about, to recruit a new person into your company will take anywhere between $10,000 and $50,000 per person, depending on the complexity of the task. By the time you've gone through the recruitment, by the time you've gone through all the training process and the induction and the loss of income from having that person not be up to speed, it's between 10 and 50 grand. So we really don't want to be able to have people walk out the door. We want to retain our good people. But if you've got a micromanager as a boss, let me tell you, people are going to start walking out the door. So try not to be this person, okay? You do not want to be a micromanager. Okay, ultimately, if you can avoid this, people that have more autonomy at work, so your team members that have more autonomy at work and are trusted to be able to do their job and do it right, they're more likely to thrive. So they will be, you know, experimental and value create and devise really great solutions and all these sorts of things. And if you can embrace the mistakes they make, then there'll be even more. And it's not risk-taking to a degree, but it is being more creative and looking outside the square. And that's what we want from our people, is to be able to do that. All right, so what's the next one? The next one's a good one too, over-criticalness. So even if criticism is constructive, you should be wary about how often you give it, okay? I think that we need to be able to give constructive feedback, but we need to do it in a way that is encouraging, supportive, and coaching. If you have a leader that is constantly telling you you're doing things wrong, and then when you do things right, they just remain silent and don't say a word, so you're not getting that balance between the two, then you'll find that you won't try anything new. You won't do anything. You'll become really demotivated. You'll become disengaged. You won't want to be working in that sort of environment for a long period of time. So there's plenty of papers and research to say that employees really learn from praise. So we need to ensure that we praise as well as give constructive feedback. And there is no written rule about what that ratio needs to be, but I've found 3 to 1. So if you can give 3 positive comments to 1 sort of negative, then usually that's okay and people can handle that. But you are going to have to change that depending on the personality of your team members. If you've got a team member that has got trouble with self-esteem and self-confidence, you might have to be a bit gentler with that approach. If you've got somebody that's got the hide like a bull and is okay with it, then you might be able to drop that down to 1-to-1. But still, it's important to get a balance right for that particular individual. And you'll know because you'll know how they react to it. So if they react really, really poorly and end up in a, withdrawing and all that sort of stuff, the ratio is not right. But if they come back and they go, okay, I'm going to try that again, can I have some more support? They're going to try and have a crack, and the ratio is spot on. So make sure, try 3-to-1, 3 positives to 1 not so positive, and then see how that goes. And what you would normally do is you would sandwich it. So you would have a positive, you would have something in the middle there that's not so positive. Maybe it's an opportunity for them to grow or something, a mistake they made or whatever, and then make sure you end up on a positive. So people call it all different things, but it's worked for years and years and years. It has worked. And when you're giving feedback, criticism in feedback, do not say the word but at any stage in that conversation. So if you say, hey, Sally, thanks for doing that presentation. You did a really great job. However, but it didn't come across really well. As soon as you say that but, all that stuff you've said beforehand doesn't mean anything. So don't say the word but. Replace it with and. So if you would say something like, hey, Sally, thanks for doing that presentation for me last week. Everybody really, really enjoyed it. And some feedback I got was, some people didn't quite understand slide 4. Maybe there was too much information on that. And some of the other feedback that I got. So don't put any buts in there. It's just an and, okay? And that's how you would give your feedback. All right, so what's the next one? The last but not least. This is inflexibility. So what are we talking about when we talk about inflexibility? So that one-size-fits-all leadership does not work. If you have done any sort of leadership programs whatsoever, you will know that one-size-fits-all does not work. We have to be agile. We have to have that flexibility to be able to cater for the individual's needs. So what do we mean? Okay, so what about how often do they need your contact? So do they need you on a daily basis? Do they need you on a weekly? Do they want you face-to-face? Are they happy with an email or a phone call? Each individual on your team is going to need you differently. So that sort of flexibility. The other flexibility, some people are more visual learners. So therefore, if you're trying to give a task to that visual person, you might draw them a mud map, or you'll draw them a picture, or you'll give them some sort of representation of what that task looks like. If that person you're giving it to is a read-write type person, then you will give them a list with everything that they need to do on that list. If they are a kinesthetic type person, then you might give them a handout that they can touch and feel and take away with them, and maybe show them something that's done before so they can touch and feel it and all that sort of thing. So you're going to cater for the needs of how they take learning on. That's what a flexible leader will do. Another way you can be flexible is know how they will react. If you've got a couple of activists on your team, and remember, we can do all these in the modules. So if you've got the unlocking modules, you can take all these surveys to find out where your people thrive. Are they visual learners? Are they reflectors, activists, theorists, pragmatists, whatever? Because then you can cater your behaviours to that. So what I mean by this, so if you've got a couple of activists, then it's okay for you to put them on the spot in a meeting and go, hey, Joe, tell me about that thing that you did yesterday. Give us a 5-minute talk on it. That's okay, but you can't do that to a reflector. They will turn into a big molten lump on the floor. So you have to be flexible. If you want somebody who's a reflector to give you some feedback, you have to give them that task the day before and give them time to think and absorb and give the best that they possibly can. So it's that knowing your people enough to be able to put them in positions where they thrive versus where you demolish them. Also, with regards to situational, so if someone rings up and says, look, my kid's really sick, I've got this task that I'd like to do, can I do that from home so I can look after her? that sort of flexibility is really important too. Is that something that you can do for your people? And the last bit of flexibility is the coaching and support that you're going to give. So you're going to have your high performers that are already motivated, that don't need much of you, but they do need your autonomy to be able to give them that space to be creative and to value add and do all those sorts of things. And then you're going to have people that are really struggling and doing the best they can, but need more support and coaching from you. So the time that you allow your people is going to vary, and you're going to have to be flexible with. So that sort of flexibility comes with the job. It does not, the one size fits all does not work as a leader, as a team leader. You're not going to have all people that need the same amount of attention from you. It's all going to vary depending on their individual needs. So that's what we're talking about here. An inflexible leader does a one-size-fits-all, and that never fits any team, ever. So try to make sure that you've got that level of flexibility in there, because you need it to survive. All right. So that's it. There's the five things that that you want to avoid if you are a leader, making sure that you can, use the best qualities that you possibly can. So just to go over them really, really quickly: absenteeism, the boss that's never there, the boss that takes all the perks of being a boss, the free car park and the extra pay rise and everything else, and then they're never there. They're never there to help their people. We don't want that, okay? And that is more common than the Tyrannosaurus Rex boss, The optimistic boss, number 2. So we're not talking about optimism, positivity. We're talking Pollyanna. The one that says, oh, yeah, we could do that, and yes, we can do that, and yeah, give us those 13 tasks to be done by next week. We can do all that. They overpromise and usually underdeliver, and they overwhelm their team, these Pollyanna-type leaders. So just be careful that that isn't you. You need to be able to push back in the appropriate times. You're not a funnel, you are a filter. So if things are coming down the line, you need to filter them. You need to be able to stop and say, all right, hold the bus. Let's have a think about this for a minute. Do we have the resources? Do we have the time? Do we have the capacity? Do we have the capability to be able to pull this off? If we do, yes, accept it. If we don't, then say we can do that little bit and that little bit. But, if you want the rest of it done, we'll have to wait for that or that. Okay, that's what our job is, not this, yeah, we can do everything and everything's hunky-dory and everybody's, living on the clouds. That's Pollyanna. We don't want Pollyanna. Okay, number 3, micromanagement, which I've said before, but oh my Lord, does it cause so much destruction when you've got high perfectionistic skills and you can't delegate, and when you do, you're hovering over somebody the whole time. Step back, step away, stop it. Do not do that, because honestly, you are going to destroy your people and they're going to walk out the door. Number 4, overcriticalness. So just making sure that we're going to do a ratio of praise versus constructive feedback. Okay, all constructive feedback is great, but it has to be balanced. Making sure that with 3 to 1, and then change that for each individual your team as you see fit. And then we've got the inflexibility, right? That one-size-fits-all leader. We don't want to be that. We know that we have to be flexible for the people on our team, flexible for each individual of what they need from us, the time they need from us, the coaching, the support, the resources, all those sorts of things. Each team member on your team is going to need a different lot. Okay, so make sure you've got that flexibility in there. All right, there you go. That's what we've got on today. So is there any questions that you have for me over whether it be about what we've talked about today or anything else that you might have? It could be something that's happening at work. And while you're thinking about that, just remember that you can ask me questions anytime you like on the ask@teamleadertoolkit.com email. Just email them through. We get back to you within 24 hours with the answer to your, as well as any resources that we can offer you to help with that question. And then I will ask you if I can put that on a webinar, because if you've asked the question, you can bet your bottom dollar there'll be other people asking the same question. So ask@teamleadertoolkit.com. Alternatively, you can get onto our closed Facebook site. So if you are in the unlocking portal, the Team Leader Toolkit unlocking portal, you have access to the secret Facebook site that only you guys have access to. You can get on there too. So we've had quite a few questions come through there, and we can answer those for you as well. But looks like everybody is okay. So without further ado, I think we're done. Yep. Okay. So without further ado, thanks, guys. Thank you for your time. And I will catch up with you next week for another brilliant webinar. So don't hesitate. Make sure you get online. Make sure you register your friends, register your colleagues. Let's get this stuff done, and let's equip you with as much as we possibly can. And so until then, I will see you later. See you, Felicity. See you, Tony. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye for now.